Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin, your host, and today from, I believe, Stockholm, right?
Yes.
Today we have Gustav Sandberg from, recently in Potomac Patriots in the USPHL, just made his college commitment. That's where I caught your eye. So many Swedes in Potomac, so we'll talk about that as well, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So the first thing that we normally talk about is the geographical component. So where are you sitting today? You got some, it looks like Swedish cold weather in the background.
Yeah, I'm in Stockholm, in Danderyd, where I live and grow up. So yeah, I'm home now, and it's nice to be back home.
Yeah. So I did a little background check. Called a friend of mine, Mike McCarthy,
Yeah.
at Future Stars Academy, who's just, I think they just finished the showcase in Knivsta.
Yep, they
And I
did. I was
said,
there.
and I said, because he's placed a lot of players in over here, and I said, Gustav Sandberg, I'm having him on the podcast. Did he go through Future Stars? And he kind of said, well, sort of. Funny thing is that he was here, but he's here as a scout.
Yeah, I helped Potomac with my friend Moritz Persson.
Yeah. So maybe we should start there, and then we'll talk about since that's kind of fresh off the press here, but then we can talk about where you grew up and hockey gym and then how you ended up coming over here. So what was your role there? So you're just finishing up with Potomac, who went all the way to semifinal or final?
Quarterfinals.
Okay.
We lost in the fifth period, so that was a tough one. But yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, and I just had one of your teammates, Mike Snystrom, on a few weeks ago, and that was before there. So getting ready to go uh, into the playoffs, and so it was posting out, right?
Yes.
But you're still attached to the team, so talking a little bit about that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I'm a big hockey nerd and I just love hockey. So they asked me if I could help them with some scouting stuff, and I'm interested in that type of things. So I said yes, and they asked me and Maurits because we live just half an hour away from Knivsta where they have their showcase. So we went up there both Saturday and Sunday, and yeah, we were just looking at players and texted the coaches players that we thought would be a good fit there, and they texted some players that they as well thought would be a good fit, and we talked about it. And I'm not a professional scout, so like I was just there to explain like my experience there, and what a good time I had over in Potomac for the players that they were interested in, and that was really fun. Me and Maurits had a good time there at the Future Stars showcase, and yeah, they really do a great job in with the Future Stars showcase. So it was so fun to be there because uh, I did the showcase last year, and I remember it was so fun, and it's really professional there. All
Yeah.
the coaches and staff are really good. So
And I think they kind of stepped it up this year when it comes to kind of content and media. And he was doing, Mike was doing interviews with on the bench, and I mean,
yeah, that's fun.
here's the thing about it that people really ought to know is that there's a lot of players that puts on camps, and they
Yeah,
do a phenomenal job in instructional, people like Doug Givenstrom, who's got Sweet Tech Hockey as an example, does a great job. Mange with skills and prehab, they do a great job in running camps, right? They focus on certain things. Maybe they're really good at off ice development. Maybe they do a phenomenal job on video analysis, and that's kind of the niche or whatever. But we've talked about Future Stars Academy, and by the way, I'm not sponsored by Future Stars Academy, but I've had I don't know how many guests that have come through there. And, I've talked to a lot of players that came from Sweden that are playing either juniors or college here now. And probably half of them have come through there. And and I'd like to get your opinion on it since you're fresh through there, both as a scout and as a participant. Is it's focused on really showcasing the player for who they are in a competitive environment. It's providing education so they know kind of here's what it is. And then it provides them he collects everybody in one funnel and let them be who they are for people to truly evaluate in a pretty short and concise way. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
So how was it then? Well, I'll tell you what. Let's pause that because I want to. That's kind of going into the how did you end up in the U.S. conversations. I want to let's start. Let's go back a little bit because Danderyd, so one of the suburbs of Stockholm.
Yeah.
Where is Danderyd in relation to Stockholm Centrum?
So I can drive from my house probably 15 minutes to get to the middle of Stockholm, and
Yeah.
we have a subway close to where I live, and if I take that, it's probably like 15 or 20 minutes. So it's north of Stockholm, but yeah, it's close and it's close to everything, and yeah.
Yeah. So did you grow up in a hockey family, or how did it start for you um, with playing hockey?
Yeah, so my dad played ice hockey, and my cousin on my dad's side is Daniel Brodin in Djurgården in Hockeyallsvenskan.
Okay. So
So I have
a little bit
followed
in the
him.
family.
Yeah, so I have followed him like I think like he was young. He was in like G20 when he made his debut in the SHL or Elitserien back in the days. But yeah, so I have followed him since I was very little and watched a lot of games, and he's my idol and have always been, and that's actually really funny, and it's fun to have someone to look up to in the family like that.
Yeah, and he's still playing, or he was just playing this past
Yeah, he's
season.
still playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, he's got a long career.
Yeah, he do.
I'm just pulling him up here now. In a couple of years in Switzerland as well, uh, and a lot of international play. Impressive. So so what was your youth organization? It says SDE, but was that really SDE when you grew up, or did that
Yeah,
form
like
later?
when I was very young, I think it was DE, like only Danderyd and Ingeberg. And then when we start playing games, all three organizations, so Stocksund also get combined. So now it's SDE.
I actually thought that SDE was more towards Uppsala, but I was wrong with that. That's more
Yeah,
Tuna.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And multi-sport, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so I played soccer and tennis as well.
Okay.
The ice hockey was always my favorite
Yeah.
since I was a little kid.
All right, let's do this just for giggles. So anybody, and for kids are growing up in Stockholm. So does everybody? So okay, he played for Djurgården. Was that kind of where you were looking? Because who are the big clubs growing up that you look up to? Is Djurgården, AIK, Södertälje?
Yeah. And my favorite team has always been Djurgården because of Daniel, my cousin.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to play there for me, like when I was younger, because it's on the south side of Stockholm, where their like youth program is playing. And yeah, I didn't make it to their hockey gym, so that was also a part. But yeah,
And I was going to ask, was that what you wanted to do? Is you wanted to go to their hockey gymnasium?
Yeah, of course I wanted, but in my U16 year, I was injured for 8 months, so I had a harder time to find a hockey gymnasium. Yeah, because of that, I didn't play until like Christmas, and those games I played, probably like 10 of them, I needed to go on. I needed to end the game earlier because I was so hurt. So
Yeah.
that was a tough year.
And no hockey TV puck tournament.
No, I didn't make it. It's so many kids and a lot of talented guys, and
Yep.
yeah, and you need, like, of course, you need to be really good, but sometimes you also need to have luck. And I probably wasn't that good when I was in that age, and yeah, I think, yeah, the team was way too good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
strong team.
it's a little bit of a or a similarity to Sami Larsson. So do you know Sami?
Yeah, so when I participated in the showcase with Future Stars, we were in the same team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who was in, can't remember which team he was in, but he was kind of like, yeah, going along. And I think he's going to end up playing D3 somewhere as well, unless he goes to like law school in Stockholm, was kind of our conversation when I had him on the podcast.
I
But
am.
did not make the hockey, did not make the TV puck tournament, did not make the NIU in Gordon and those type of things. But doesn't, this proves the point that you don't have to, you don't, I mean, how many kids are quitting hockey at 15 because they didn't get into NIU?
Yeah, that's a lot of kids. A lot of my friends did it, but I had too much of a love for the sport, so
Yep.
I still played, and I was lucky. Like after Christmas, my injury were start getting away, and I went up to Örnsköldsvik, where I went to hockey gym, and went on a tryout on a practice for 2 days, and I understood like this is my shot to, yeah, to make it. So I had two really good practices, and they wanted me right away. And yeah, I was on a couple of other teams as well, but they really took care of me when I was up there from the beginning, and it felt good. And I'm really happy with my choice because I got so much better of those 3 years. Got into a new season in a new team with the last season with the injury, but yeah, it was tough the first year, like moving away from home and yeah, like getting new friends and all of that. But it was totally worth it. I have a ton of friends from there I s- that I have contact with and that I meet up with now when I'm back home in Sweden from the USA. So
So why up there? I mean, because that's a long ways. For people that don't know, you were talking about Stockholm, who's on the east coast of Sweden, kind of Sweden's a tall country, so a third way up is Stockholm, and then you go another third way up, and that's Övik. Uh,
yeah, so I had a couple of teams in Stockholm that wanted me to play for their U18 elite team, and yeah, that was interesting for me. But uh, most of the teams when I were in that age didn't have like that you could combine school and ice hockey, and Övik had that. So I thought like, yeah, I should just give it a try and go up there and try to make a spot and see how it is. And so my dad followed me up, and yeah, he also liked it. They took so good care of me and my dad from the beginning, and yeah, we just fall in love with it and thought this would be a good place to be for the next 3 years.
yeah, and a little bit, so Örnsköldsvik, of course, is known for Modo, who has an
Yeah,
NIL program, and not a huge place, but not a little place either.
yeah.
Enough to be two organizations in the same town.
Yeah, so Modo usually on like they they keep some of their guys from the U16 team, but they like to bring in players from all over Sweden, and
Yep.
their O3 team in the UX U16 where they went third place in the national, like in Swedish nationals.
Yep.
But they got a lot of new kids to the G18 team. So most of the kids didn't want to move from Övik, and the year before I started there, they went to the Övik went to nationals, so they had good O2s. So all the O3s that didn't make moto went there, so we had a really good team.
Yeah.
And,
Now, on your lead prospects profile, it also shows ÖSK.
yeah, so some of
For the US audience, which is so a little educational moment. Swedish has three extra letters. Which is a vowel, an O with two dots over it. So ÖSK, what what is ÖSK? Is that also in Örnsköldsvik?
yeah, so uh that's like a team that that my team like had a like affiliated with.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was some like they needed players, so sometimes some of our guys went down there just to play, and yeah,
I
so
see. Yeah,
I
okay,
think they
okay.
played one
And
game there.
it's one game that they needed to fill out the roster for this game, but you were
Yeah,
really playing for Örnsköldsvik HF.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
see.
So they just needed players, and they had a home game, and like the rink was like I don't know 20 minutes from where I lived, so it was like yeah, of course I can do that. Like it's just fun to play ice hockey. So
Yeah. And then I guess your second year up there, COVID.
yeah, COVID year.
Yep, because nine games, one with J20, and then that was it. Probably got cut short. And then you're going back up there for the third year and full season, good season as well. How was it to live up there? Did you have an apartment that they arranged, or did you have to get it on your own?
So they helped me to get an apartment, and yeah, I usually the kids only get like one room, but my family, like they love to watch my games, and yeah, so we rented a little bit bigger so they could be up there whenever they wanted. So
Yeah.
yeah, so they went up to like every home game because we played on the weekends, so that was really fun.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. So when we talked a little bit offline, my son was playing last year in Sweden, and we came to visit, and he had the room and didn't want us to stay there, so we got an Airbnb, and it was kind of like uh, and I was the same way when I was growing up. I was kind of doing my thing, so having my parents around wasn't necessarily the, the favorite thing, but I'm sure that was nice.
Yeah, that was nice to get him up there to yeah to just help me if I needed help with homework or like cooking food and stuff. So
Did your mom bring a home cooked meal every time she came?
yeah, and she made a lot of food for me and my mom. But my mom stayed a lot with me because yeah she she didn't trust me sometimes to live by my own, so she went up there a lot.
Nice, nice. All right, so let me ask you this too, because you were going to school, and so offline people been doing this podcast for 2 years and been publishing over 100 episodes now. And so people are contacting me and they're like, I'm interested about going to Sweden to play. And, over here where you got just recently had a parent of a US player with a European passport that was looking at, what's the advantages of going to play in Europe. And what they don't understand is that, in the US, boarding schools are fairly common. And going to play hockey, you can go to a private boarding school and then you live, and you play hockey on the team, and not so much in Sweden.
Yeah.
Now in hockey gymnasium, a lot of them, but what they need to understand is that the housing is on your own.
Yeah.
And then there's a school, and then there's a hockey team.
Yeah.
And not necessarily all together, but they're cooperating, but not the same organization.
Yeah, exactly. So usually like a lot of like you like when you start hockey gymnasium, like the school offers you, so you don't take two classes. I think instead you have hockey as a subject.
Yeah,
Yeah, you be on ice and you do some off ice stuff, and you have some like exam stuff that you need to hand in.
yeah.
And I really liked it and enjoyed it.
What was your area of study?
Uh, Business.
Not so you are just like everybody else that now when we're talking about college, those are that are going to college in the US. None of them studied construction or barnefritid or early childhood development.
Yeah.
So business was not necessarily the easiest subject that you could have taken.
No, it was. It is what you do it like. I put down actually pretty much work to school. And yeah, I don't have E's in school, but I don't have it hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like to study to be prepared for the tests, but sometimes it's hard with all the travel with ice hockey. But I make it work,
yeah.
and
So and then you went 3 years up there. Uh, you could have stayed for another year.
yeah, I
So you had
could have.
another year of eligibility in J20. Were you so you're then 19, so this was 2020 21 22 season, sort of coming out of COVID, but you played a full season. Where is your head? Do I go back to Stockholm? Do I look for another team? Do I stay for another year in Örnsköldsvik? Maybe I can make a spot in Modo's J20 National. Where were your
So
how did that thought pattern go?
So in the beginning, like my plan was to play in Sweden, and I talked with a couple of teams. I went down to Södertälje and practiced with their G20 national team, and they got me like a practice spot there from the beginning because they thought they were supposed to lose a guy, a defenseman, but he resigned, so then they didn't have a spot for me. And but I talked with some other teams, both up north and down south. But then my parents said, like, you don't think it's good to go to the USA and get better on your English? And that world opened, and yeah,
So
I was
it actually came from your parents.
yeah, from my dad actually and my mom, because my mom is grown up in Paris and some other places in Europe, but she's not good at all at English, and that's something that she regrets, that she never went to an English-speaking country in my age. And she told me that, and my dad said like, "Yeah, that's true, but do you don't think it would be cool to go over to the USA and play ice hockey?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds cool, but it's a big step." And it was nervous in the beginning. So
So when you first had that conversation, did you know much about then, okay, yeah, I'm interested, but what does that look like?
yeah, and then I have an older brother. He's born 99, so he's 4 years older than me. Uh, and but he quit ice hockey like second year of gymnasium, but he played U18 elite both years, and then he quit because he got sick pretty badly. And then
Okay.
when he tried to get back to ice hockey, it was a long journey. And yeah, he understood that hockey is not his thing and school is his thing. So yeah, and he had studied 4 years at Northeastern, so he was already in the US. And he had some friends that played junior ice hockey. So I started to talk with them, and they explained like how it was and everything. And I thought, yeah, that sounds super cool. So I would start, yeah, reaching out to teams and stuff.
What part I have to ask is what part of it was that, at that age when you're like, okay, you're 19 but what was it that was the most enticing?
just to go over, like when you're younger, like your dream is to play ice hockey in the US. Like you want to go to the NHL. And then when I heard that you can go over and play juniors like right after graduation, it was like, shit, I want to do that. So
Sign me up.
I, yeah,
So all right, walk those people, because there's a lot of people that are thinking that, right? And now are like, oh, that sounds cool. And perhaps they've been listening to the podcast, or they've got a teammate or whatever. Or I know so and so went, and it's becoming more and more common. And I just think it's something that kids in Sweden should absolutely look at. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about the reasons why. But so so when you were starting to think about in those things, where did you go to then? Okay, so you mentioned your brother's friends, so you talked to them, but did you know much about the different levels of juniors? And
I had no clue in the beginning. It was just, I thought it was like 1,000 leagues, and I was like, holy shit. Like in Sweden, you only have like national, like G20 elite, or like regional, or what it's called now, and
yeah,
then like Division One.
yep,
And like that's three different options. And then when you looked like Canada and USA, and you see like all those leagues, it's like, holy.
yeah. Especially I mean, if you just go into Elite Prospects and you type in, I think if you go to leagues and put junior league, or maybe if I click on leagues, I did this on a special episode without if you just look at leagues, it's got men's hockey, women's hockey, North America, Europe, international. So if you look at North America and then you look at juniors, and then you got US and Canada. I mean, US is hard enough. If you go to the
Yeah,
Canadian side, it's nuts.
yeah, I know.
So, but okay, so how did you go to Elite Prospects? Is that kind of were you like one of these guys that started combing through Elite Prospects and learning and studying?
Yeah, I will start looking at all those type of options and leagues at Elite Prospect, and I was like, oh my God, this is a ton of leagues. And like, and then after a while, like you start hearing about the difference of the leagues, and you start like recognize it, and like, oh yeah, this is tier 3, this is tier 2, and this is the USHL.
Yeah. And
So
some are free and some are not free.
yeah,
So how did that go about? Because you're like, okay, it's not cheap to come over here to play. I mean, if you compare to what you paid in a year in Örnsköldsvik in hockey gymnasium versus tier 3, it's a big difference.
yeah, it is. It is, but and then it's also like in the USA, like they can give different contracts, different players. Like in Sweden, you don't have it like that. Like
Yeah.
everyone is paying the same amount of money, and that's how it is. So in tier 3, that's a lot of difference. But yeah, I never got like in tier 3 like a much higher price that I got in Sweden, so I was lucky.
Yeah.
But I've heard some kids from my team in Potomac that paid like crazy amount of money that you would never hear in Sweden.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be aware of those, and you have to be a little bit cautious. So how did you get hooked up with Future Stars Academy?
Uh, so I actually only went 1 year at the
Yep.
Future Stars Academy, and then I already had 1 year in the books with Potomac. So it was actually my head coach that told me like that they work with Future Stars, and he said like, yeah, if you guys want to go, you should go. It's a good camp, and it's a lot of teams that watch you, so you should go there. And I said, yeah, I want to be on ice as well. So I went there, but I didn't have any like high expectations, or I didn't know what to expect, but it was really good, and it was worth it. It was fun, and you got a lot of eyes on you as well.
So all right, so go back a second. So you said you already had, so how did you then get in touch with Potomac if it wasn't through Future Stars?
So it was through one of my dad's colleagues at work that knew a guy that is a Swede that went on a D3 school and also a prep school, and he's now a skills coach, like in the DC area where Potomac is, but I think it was like half an hour away. So I went over there after my graduation in Sweden to practice with him and like start talking with teams because he helped me with all of that. So I lived with him for a month, practiced with a
What's
with
his name?
Anton Rosen.
Okay, it's not. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, was it Joachim Carlson? Because he's also living up in that area.
Oh, okay. Ah, I didn't know that.
Oh, that's cool. So okay, so that's how you got in touch with him there.
Yeah, so I went there because in my last year in Örnsköldsvik, he started helping with me with talking to different teams, and I made like a highlight video that we sent out to coaches in all different leagues, and this was like in the really beginning of my start searching for teams in the USA. Then a null team called me and were like, "We have a lot of injuries. Do you want to come over and play? Like you can start with a practice, like come over for a week, and but we need D." And I was like, because I was young, so like, and they like to develop young players, so they said like, "Yeah, we see that you can like be much better if we just work with you." But that was too much of a big of a step. Like
Yeah,
I panicked, and it was up in Anchorage as well, so in Alaska. So it was not like on the East Coast. It was like all the way out in Alaska. So I actually denied the offer to go over there, and yeah, I regret it now. But I don't know if I should regret it because I would live in the middle of school and everything. So
yeah,
I don't know how I would do with like online school and all of that stuff. And my parents said as well, like, you need to finish school, like you want to go to college as well. So like you need to think about your educational stuff. So I deny that. And that was probably a bad decision because I think you could do like online school, but I don't know if I was in my
was it,
mind.
but was that an invitation to main camp?
No, that was to join in the middle of the season.
Okay, yeah,
Uh, because I was a young guy, like they would have worked with me for like 3 years then.
yeah,
So that was why. And they also like, and the things with Null is that have their import
yeah.
things.
They have only five, typically five import spots.
Yeah, so that was probably like when I got that chance, I would probably should have taken it because after that I went on one main camp and I did really well, but it was a lot of imports. So I went to the All-Star game and everything, but they cut me and some other import guys because they could only have five. And
Yep. But I think it's worth to mention too, like you know, you're not 5'8", 135 pounds.
yeah,
So I mean, and this is so funny to be able to when you talk to players and you talk to coaches and scouts and general managers, and you're like, well, you're 6'5", 194.
yeah,
So when people see that, they're like, well, you can't teach size.
yeah,
That's the expression, like, oh, he's big, right?
yeah. And I
And
yeah, yeah,
so it does automatically get a lot of attention, which and then okay, can this person be developed? Okay, so here's how I see it with big Swedes is size from Sweden, must be smart, must be a good hockey player, and he's big. We can do that's a lot to work with.
yeah,
And so I totally understand why null teams would be interested. Uh,
yeah,
because in the null, it's a big league. It's
yeah,
old, it's big, and yeah, the challenge really is roster spots. So, and when you're saying like, was that a mistake, or was that a good move of declining? Well, they're not known for necessarily development.
yeah, I know.
So if you're not good enough, if you're young and not good enough, you would be either cut or you would be not getting any playing time
Exactly.
versus going back. And I guess you went back and finished. So you finished your year in Örnsköldsvik.
Yeah, so I never went over there or anything. I just finished my year in Sweden and everything like that. So
Yeah, and I mean, you could always. I mean, look, everything happens for a reason, and we're going to talk about where you're going. So it worked out fine anyway.
yeah, I know.
So I think that it's um, it's fun. So all right, so you talk about your year so you did 2 years in Potomac. So the first month you said you stayed with Anton Resen.
Yeah, but that was in the middle of the summer.
Okay.
So I
So when you went
over
over
like
here, okay, I see. You were here
yeah.
testing. So when you first came over, were they actually skating as a team?
No, so I didn't have a team or anything. So I went over with no team, but I talked with teams. But I had no clue when I went over to that place what Potomac even was. They
Okay.
saw me at the practice in that rink, and they took me out of the locker room and drove me to Potomac's ice rink and showed me around and start talking with me.
So you felt the love of being recruited, and you're like, these guys really want me.
Yeah, so I went there and talked with them, and like I said like, yeah, this sounds really good because they told me like right from the beginning like you have size, like you're a good great skater, you have those things, but we want to teach you some stuff if you don't make it to the null,
Yeah.
and we will try to get you there. So I told them like, yeah, we can talk more, but I'm going to this men camp, and after that I'm going home. So if I don't make it, we can talk more.
Yeah.
And they said like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. And that's kind of I mean, that's the pecking order that they're in USPHL, right?
Yeah.
So which team did you go to for in the Knoll for main camp?
So I went to the Lone Star Brahmas.
Okay. All right. I've been there. Uh,
Yeah.
Coach Wildfong.
Yep.
All right.
He was super nice. He called me because I sent my highlight tape to him and he liked me. So he called me and said like, yeah, you can go on our main camp. Like we're searching for this. We need some this, and like if you go here and do it really good, like you will get a spot. But you have some other like import guys to fight for that spot. So yeah, I went over there, tried to make a spot, did it really good. He liked me and he said like, yeah, you're a great hockey player and all of that stuff. Like they did a really good men camp because like they had like a ton of scouts at that thing that were like taking notes from like every shift. So
Yeah.
like
So
when
was
I
that
when
was that 2 years ago this summer?
yeah 2 years, yeah, 2 years ago.
All right. I was thinking because we were there actually last summer.
Oh
So
yeah.
all right. So we have some notes to compare here. So what was your so of course that is in the middle of July.
Yeah.
All right. You get down to Dallas,
Yeah.
and then you drive out to, I think it's called North Richland Hills is where the rink is.
Yeah, probably. I don't remember.
So so did you go there with your parents or did you go there on your
Yeah.
own?
So
Okay.
my parents went there with me, and we were like, all of us were like excited and like, yeah,
Did you
we
stay
will
at the
set up.
Hyatt?
Yeah.
Yep. That's typically where they have it. And so let's see if we had about the same experience. The weather.
It was, yeah, the ice was so bad. It was too warm in outside and in the rink.
It was so hot down there, about 100 degrees, and you're like, it feels so good getting in the rink.
Yeah.
And then, so when you first got there and you get your jerseys, what was your first impression?
Like this place is huge and
And
it's a
how many people were in that gym?
it was so many kids, and I was like, holy, this is a ton of guys. You would never see this in Sweden try out for a team. I had no clue what to expect. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Which is why it's so valuable to just go to that, right? And for
yeah,
people, we've had this conversation with, which is, look, this podcast is about educating and informing. And I think that is going in there and never, if number one, it's intimidating because you're right. You start counting the odds,
yeah,
right? Now, you were 03, so 2 years ago. They were then, you would have been, uh, they've been 2 years older than you on that team, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So you're also young for the null.
No, so I had the oldest guys were 02s, and I was 03.
Okay, 02. Okay, so you were not okay. So here's an important thing that a lot of people don't know is so if you were, every year is different because people age out. So you were not the oldest, but you were the second oldest. So for null, it's the right time to go.
Yeah,
If you would have been an 04 when you went 2 years ago, you would have been competing with 02s and 03s. And
yeah,
and very few 04s would have made that team,
yeah. It's only
right?
like the high-end guys that are super.
Especially in Null South, especially Dan Wildfong, who likes older guys, big guys, physical guys.
Yeah,
So they divide you up into what they have, 8 teams.
yeah. I think it was 18s, right? Yeah.
All right. So let me make sure. So you had not played hockey other than the skills stuff in the US before that.
I played like a tournament where I was like 14 or 15,
Okay.
but
All
I
right. That doesn't count.
yeah, not at
So
all.
so first game, how long did it take you until you were like the first big hit?
In my first shift, they dumped the puck. I passed it to my D-man. A guy just run me right into the boards, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is a wake-up call."
And you're like, you're going to dust it up and take it behind the net and looking and skating up in front of the goalie and make a nice tape to tape pass to the red line, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't happen in the US, right? To me, that's the big difference between Swedish hockey and US hockey, right? And people have a hard time, getting used to that. So the time and space is just not there.
yeah,
Because in
but
Sweden, no forecheck, right?
yeah, and you have in with the bigger ice, like you have so much time, and
Yeah.
that was like that was so huge different that I noticed from the beginning.
Yeah. What was it like in the locker room, though? I mean, so, you're kind of in there and you're competing with all these guys and you don't know a soul.
Yeah, so I actually had a Swede on my team at the main camp. I don't remember his name, but I saw that he had like a Swedish logo, and I walk up to him and like, "Hi, are you from Sweden?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am." And then we were start talking, but like all the other guys, like some guys knew each other, so like the first time everyone went into the locker room, like not so many guys talked with each other,
Yeah.
but like right after the first game, everyone started talking with each other. So it was good. It was a good time in the locker room, and it was fun. Like I think it was fun to them to meet a Swedish person because
Yeah.
like yeah, that's not so common
And
for
then they're
them.
like, yeah, look at this dude. He's 6'5". Have you been 6'5" for a while?
Yeah, for a while now.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
yeah.
Some people are like, yeah, I no, I just grew 2 inches this past year. And some people are like, no, I've been since 14. All right. So, but how do you count that? Okay. Are you glad that you went to that main camp?
Yeah, I'm really glad that I did it. It
Yeah.
was a good experience, and it was like it was a wake up call from the first time. Like this is how it is in the USA, and and you learned a lot from it. So like like if you can go on a main camp, I would say you should go.
Yeah.
Like even if you don't like, of course you want to make it. That's everyone's like goal with going there. But
Yeah.
if you don't make it, you learn so much from it.
Yeah. But you also have to be realistic that, okay, you go through main camp, you play 4 games or 4 games, and then they have a cut, and then they go to all-star game. And then from there, they announce who's going to go to the training camp.
Yeah.
And you could go to training camp and then you can be cut after training camp. So,
Yeah.
and I think that what people need to know is that to get into the North American Hockey League is hard. It's really,
Yeah.
really hard. And then to stay in the North American Hockey League is even harder.
Yeah, and especially as an import, because
Yeah,
you can only have like 5 spots, and
yeah,
like they can change you like this if you don't are good enough.
yeah. And to go to main camp, it's not free. It's 450 bucks, and then you got to pay for flight, hotel rooms, rental car.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it adds up to be, but I do think it's valuable to be able to, you could listen to this podcast and have an idea of what you go through, but it is eye-opening. As a parent, you know,
Yeah.
going through it, it was eye-opening to me. And then, um, you know, should you go to 5 main camps? No. Go to one, get the experience, know what the level is. Now, on the other hand, going to Lone Star, in retrospect, same thing. Would that be the place you should go? They're the top team. They're in the semifinal now in the Robertson Cup, and they're up there every year. One of the hardest teams to go into. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you're going to try to get into the Null, should you try to go to Lone Star? No. You know,
Yeah.
and but if you can go there and get in, man, it's a great spot. It's a great
Yeah.
rank. They, you know, um, Texas is not a bad place to live either. You know, if you're going to freeze somewhere, freeze in Texas, and you won't freeze very much. All right. But then you ended up. So how did you then end up in Potomac?
So
Because
when I
because you already had we're staying in touch. So did you call them right away after main camp?
no, so I went back up to Örnsköldsvik and start practice with the Hockeyettan team.
Okay.
And so I was, yeah, practicing with them. Gratz and Gross called me, and I would start talking with them. And yeah, I was like, I didn't know what I want to do, because like it's a lot of emotions when you get cut from something, but like I think I made the right decision to go back to the US and play for Potomac. Like when and they understood like it's a big step from Sweden to go over to the US and play, but something I was like thinking about when I got cut from the Null was, if I want to go to the US, I want to get like ice time. I don't want to go over to the US my first year and like sit on the bench and
Yep.
don't develop. And they like so they we had great talks, a couple of talks, and they were like, yeah, we really want you and we really like you. So they gave me a great deal. They told me like, yeah, we will do as best as we can to develop you, and like you will play power play, box play, all of those things. And when they told me that, like I couldn't say no. uh and and they told me like, if you think it sucks here, you can always go back to Sweden. And my parents said the same thing, like, if you hate it there, Sweden is always here for you. So I went over there, like, wanted to do the best as I could, and see if I like it or not. But like the first day I got in there, I really liked it from the start.
Yeah. So then you billeted, right? Who was
Yeah.
your roommate?
So my first year I lived alone in a billet.
Okay.
So I didn't have a roommate, because I thought it would be a lot, like to be with all of the guys on the rink every day and stuff, and wanted to like to get some time for myself. But I think if I could go back in time and change it, I would have lived with someone my first year, like I did last season. I changed, so I lived with Maurits Persson, so we lived
Okay.
together. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, uh, and so you played there. made it through the playoffs. So back then, that year, you had one, two, three, four, five, six Swedes on that team, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about Max Nyström. He was your teammate then. Um, so that was a lot. That was um, a lot of Swedes on that team. So finish. We fast forward through that year. So, well, let me ask you this. So, how different um, do you say USPHL Premier is to Null?
Mm, it's different. Null is a pretty greedy league, like,
Yeah.
and especially down in the south. Uh, but I think like USPHL always have some guys that can play like in a higher level, like,
Yep.
and especially in the Southeast division, it's a really good division we played in, and it was a lot of talented guys, and I think it even was some null drops that played uh, every year. I know one in Nashville my first year. He played the game in the null, and then he went to Nashville, and he was so super good.
Yeah. Yeah, that certainly is the case. All right. So what and I can tell it's getting darker there in Sweden. I know it's later in in the evening there. Um talk about then the decision. So now you finished up your first year and you go back for another year.
Yeah, so I tendered with the NCDC team, but I think you should be like aware who you tender with and who you, like and what they say, because the team I tender with, I don't have to say any names, but they called me like every day for a week and said like, yeah, we love you in Potomac. You will play exact same way. You will play power play, box play. You will play 20 minutes a game. And then I show up there and they cut me and my best friend right away. And they told us all of those things. And then when we like, and I talked with probably like between 7 and 10 NCDC teams. And so I think I made a bad decision because they didn't hold what they said. And they
Yeah.
never even got us, like, we never even got the chance to show them like what they said. And like, so yeah, but when all of those things happened, I got extremely mad and sad. So I went back to Sweden, and I was actually injured that summer. So that was also a problem. But I got like good to the season. But I went back home. Uh, what?
And just to clarify that, I mean, now you're in a position where you no longer have eligibility to play juniors in Sweden.
Yeah.
So
So
so you have a choice of like, do I now go to school,
yeah.
right? Do I go to college in Sweden?
Yeah, so I actually like I accepted my place at Luleå Tekniska Universitet in Sweden. So I was thinking to go there, but Gratz and Go Gross called me and like, man, we need you back here. Like we have an awesome team. You need to go back. And I was talking with my parents and we're like, okay, yeah, I go back, see how it is. If I like the team as much as I did last year, I stay. If I don't, I still have my spot at that school. So I went over, but I fall in love with it right away again. And yeah, I'm really happy that I made a decision to go back to Potomac because
Yeah.
yeah, it still worked out with everything. Like I don't think I would get any better offers that I get from NCDC to D3 that I made from USPHL. So
Yeah, and I think from a standpoint of okay, you could have went to college, but you couldn't have played. I mean, you could have went to university in Sweden. You could have went
yeah,
to Luleå. It would have been awesome. I mean, from an academic standpoint, but your
yeah,
hockey would be over.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could perhaps play Division 3.
Yeah, I think they have like a Division 2 there team there you can play for, but I don't think it's that serious. And like and that was the hardest choice because I love hockey so much. So like when I was thinking like, shit, is this the end? And then I'm like, no, I don't have the end yet. Like I
Yeah,
want to.
and I think that um, you know, it's tough. You're 18, 19, or I mean, what are you then? So you were then 20,
Yeah.
19, and you're like, if you're 22, it's one thing, but if you're 19, you're like, no, I want to have some more fun.
Yeah.
All right, so then you go back. I got to ask you about this too. So if you pull up your roster for this year in Potomac, so you had two twins from Belarus.
Yeah.
Talk about those. So how do you pronounce their last name, or what did you all call
We call them Matt and Simon
them?
because their names, and like that was the easiest way to say it. And I think their last name is like Marcianak, or I
Yeah.
don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but the announcers and everything said it like that.
All right. So for the people that are listening that don't have, so if you pulled up Potomac Patriots last season, 23-24, Simon Marcianuk, 41 games, 112 points. His twin brother, Matvey, 42 games, 93 points. So the two of them are leading. Those must have been pretty good.
Yeah, they're probably the fastest player I ever seen in my own like close age. They're monsters in the gym. Like they're strong. They're really strong, and they can use their things from the workouts out on the ice. So they use their speed, and they're really good to put the puck in the net.
But I
Uh,
mean, not big, 5'8", 150. And
yeah, they look like they don't weight that much, but like when you see them in the gym, yeah, you can see that those guys are strong.
okay.
They were much stronger than the other guys. Like when we did the shins, like they did like 6 shins with like 30 kilos in the belt. When when we did it with like not that much of a weight in the belt. So
But it's kind of cool. I mean, that's the thing that you sometimes see here with USPHL, right? There's
yeah,
some really good players in there. Clearly, they're not in
yeah,
the right league.
yeah,
They could have played somewhere else.
yeah, for sure.
If you're putting those kind of points up, I mean, 39 goals and 43 goals, that's a point, there's a goal per game and I mean, it's almost 3 points per game.
Yeah, but I think it could be good for some international guys to take a year in the USPHL because I think most of the USPHL teams like they care about their players, and those guys were not good and like were not good at all at English, like they couldn't say a
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, and I
So
think so an interesting parallel that we've had Johan Eriksson from Bradford Rattlers on the Canadian side that plays in the GMHL
yeah,
that in comparison kind of a similar league in terms of hockey, but they're the top team in GMHL. They're allowed to bring in Europeans. Some of them come from J20 National.
yeah, I know.
But they may have come in like Jakob Rodin came in from Leksand J20 National, you know, really didn't have a good offensive game, came over there, gained a ton of confidence in his last year of juniors, goes back to Sweden, signed with Forshaga in Hockeyettan, just re-signed, just kind of regained that. So
Yeah,
not everybody needs to go to the USHL or North American Hockey League. Go where you can get ice time, we can get confidence. Clearly, the team that tendered you in the NCDC, you should be glad that you didn't go there,
yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Um,
So I think like everyone needs to take their own path, and like sometimes tier 3 is good for some people and sometimes tier 2 is better for some guys. But I had 2 great season in tier 3, and I developed so much as a player that I don't think I would have done in tier 2.
yeah. All right, so let's round out with this thing about D3 or NCAA D3, right? Um, so you decided I'm not going back to Luleå. I want to keep on playing. So how did you get in touch with so let's see, you are going to, I had it up here, Nichols College, which is in Massachusetts. I had to put it up in on another screen here, but it's in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah. So my advisor that I got when I got over, I didn't have an advisor before in Sweden. So when I start playing games for Potomac my first year, some advisors from the USA start reached out to me. And my billets, my first billets, they knew this guy, and he watched I think my first 10 games, and then he called me, and I talked with another advisor at the same time, like just see who I wanted to choose, and then uh, I really liked him from the start, uh, and like and like I felt like yeah I can trust this guy because I was scared to
Yeah,
get to choose the wrong guy that didn't like wanted to help me enough.
yeah,
So he helped me, but also the coaches in Potomac talked with like a lot of college teams as well. So both both of those two like guys, both my advisor and my coaches in Potomac helped me. So that was how I got in touch with them, and
how many different schools did you visit?
I visited a lot. But it could be like 7 or 8,
Wow. Yeah,
something like that. But I usually went away and took like 2 or 3 schools in a row, like when I went away. So
yeah, yeah. What and
and
what made you decide on Nichols?
so I saw that they like for a long time they usually have like a couple of Swedes, like one or two. So that was like interesting. Like okay, Swedes go there, so they should like Swedes. And I searched up the school. I saw that they're pretty like they're good at ice hockey, and their education is really good as well. And yeah, so my advisor like they know each other, so he reached out to them. They watched a couple of games, and they said like, "Yeah, we can have a talk." So they called me, and we talked with each other. And then I talked with some other schools in the Massachusetts. So I went up there and visited like two. I visited Nichols and one more school, but when I got to Nichols like right away and saw the campus and like everything there, I fall in love with it and was like, yeah, I can totally be here for 4 years, and that was my top choice. So when they told me they want me to have me on the team, I got so happy, and it was an easy decision.
Yeah. So when are you going? When's training camp start?
I don't know. We haven't got all the information yet. I'm doing all the like the visa stuff right now, but I
Oh
think
God.
I'm going over like in August something.
Yeah.
They yeah.
And how did it work? Did you have to were you able to get financial aid and kind of help? Because
Yeah.
it's kind of expensive to go to college.
Yeah, so I think the tuition is like 50,000 a year,
Yeah.
dollar. Uh, and yeah, I did all the applications, and I got a yeah from like I got a good scholarship on it.
Yeah.
So that's what's nice because from my like from my grades and from the application, so I got a lot from that. So that was good.
Well, now when you can do image, what is it? Image likeness, and I can't remember NIL, national name, image, likeness. Now you can go out there and create a social media platform and generate money that way too.
Yeah.
Maybe not in your repertoire yet, but maybe after this podcast. All right. It's been so much fun to have you on. Last thing, we have a partnership with Target Aid, which is an organization out of Stockholm, Sweden, that has a partnership. You Gordon had a big fundraising effort with Target Aid and raised like 1.8 Swedish million crowns. Um, and still didn't help him get up in the SHL. But you know, the initiative that we have is the team in my heart. So klubben i mitt hjärta. Which one is yours?
Djurgården.
Djurgården. All right. So we'll make sure that you're tagged on to. We'll tag that. You'll have a presence on our Target Aid platform, and we'll help them with some content. Last thing here, you met yourself at 17. You're not too far away from that, but things you know now that you didn't know then that you'd like to share with yourself. You're sitting there with yourself with your arm around him, you're saying, hey, just, you know, what here's what I want you to know.
Like that, like juniors play juniors in the USA. That will, like, even if you don't go to college or like in the US, like you will remember those 2 years, or if you only go 1 year, you will remember that for the rest of your life. You see so much like that you would never see, and and you meet so many kids that you will never meet, and it's just so fun to go over there and play ice hockey. If you love ice hockey, you would do it. Like,
Yeah,
that's my advice.
great. Well, it's been fun to have you on, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in green and black. I mean, is it the Buffaloes or the Bisons, or what's their Bisons? All right. Not familiar with them, but we'll have another one that we can start following from the podcast chair. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.